Hey everyone, how are you all doing? Welcome to SPSM Chat, SPSM Suicide Prevention Social Media. My name is Rudy Caceres, at Rudy Caceres on Twitter. I'm so proud of myself for remembering to introduce myself. And we are also at SPSM Chat on Twitter. Hopefully, you're watching this live because if you are, please let us know that you're here. Let us know that you care, and that the video should be the live stream should be at the top of the Twitter page. So look forward to that. We're also on facebook.com/SPSM Chat, youtube.com/SPSM Chat, and mixer.com/SPSM Chat. We're going to have some fun. Our guest this week, Victoria Maxwell, is going to talk about all the cool things that she's doing. In addition, we're going to be talking about suicidal ideation, because why not? That's a great topic. Coping mechanisms, psych ward stays, and voluntary treatment, all that good stuff, and more. But before we get to our guest of honor, let's take it to our one and only co-host tonight, Marie. How are you doing, Marie?
Hello. I am all right, as good as anybody. That is the weirdest question to ask right now. The most bizarre thing you can ask right now is, "How are you doing?" Because what kind of answer could anybody possibly give you?
I know. I once asked a friend like minutes after he discovered that his best friend died, like, "How are you?" And so I can definitely get a lot worse than that. So
Oh my God. Yeah, so I'm not there, so that's great. Thankfully, everybody in my family is healthy. But hello, everyone. My name is Marie Shanley, better known online as Anxiety. I'm a mental health talk show host on Mixer. If you're watching on Mixer, hello. If you're watching elsewhere, still hello. And what else do I do? So I'm a recent author. I published a book that's a compilation of my blog stories, and my blog is a compilation of what I call research personal writing. So they're personal essays where I describe what's going on and what my life is like, and then I living with depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and then I go into detail as to how and why these things happen, and so it gives you a little bit of a background. It's not just me talking about my experience, but that is my whole shindig. Is I talk about my experience. I interview people about theirs, whether they're professionals or people living with certain illnesses. And when we're not doing that, I play a bunch of video games. So anywhere you type in anxiety, you can find me. And for tonight, I will be your co-host. And Rudy, take it away.
yes, this is like the Rudy and Marie show.
It is. We need a theme song.
I don't know. We'll get on
No.
that.
Well,
If
yeah.
you are a musician, I know we have musicians that watch this show. So if you want to do the SPSM Chat theme,
How cool
let's
would that
talk.
be?
We will barter something. And look what I have. Put the camera on me.
On Rudy.
Or there we
There
go.
it is.
Look what I have.
Oh,
A
look at that.
anxiety sticker.
Look at that. That is so silly.
I'm gonna
That
do the
that's
rest of the show like this.
That's
it's
great.
better than a potato. So
There we go. Hey Gretchen, how you doing on Twitter? Tell the whole world, the whole SPSM Chat Universe Galaxy block, who is Victoria Maxwell?
Wow. Well, I am a mental health speaker and I also do mental health coaching. But when I say I'm a mental health speaker, I have written and I perform what I call theatrical keynotes. So I was an actor in a former life, like literally decades ago. And when I was hit with bipolar disorder and psychosis and committed to the psych ward, that sort of went by the wayside. And I never really got back into that because I really found that the whole acting industry was super disruptive for my own mental health. But then when I got back to sort of stabilize my own mental health, I started writing. And I wrote a first show that was about my experience and sort of my journey of acceptance and the very beginning part of recovery. And when I performed that probably in 2001. And it had, I think there was a real appetite for stories because there weren't a lot of people sharing at that time. There were some celebrities, but that was about it. There were no sort of what I call Josephine or, average Joes talking about it. And so it sort of snowballed from there. So I go across Canada, into the States, internationally, and I perform these one-person shows, really, theatrical keynotes that are funny, tell my story. I have a couple of other ones as well, two others that I tour a lot, one about getting back to work, and another one that really is talking about my family, because mental illness is like everywhere in my family tree. I joke that the nut doesn't fall far from the tree, because it's on both sides. And I do workshops too, mental health workshops, and I'm also a big creativity catalyst. I really love to coach people on writing their own stories. So I've done what I call a Truth Be Told program that is about helping people write their stories more or less in monologue form, but it can be any kind of form. And we did one here recently. I'm in just outside of Vancouver, Canada, and it was really, really exciting to see people find their story, feel liberated, and do it to a really engaged audience. And that was something that I love doing, and I hope to do more of. So yeah, and then when I'm not doing anything all mental healthy, I have a dog. I run with my dog. My husband and I go hiking, and I am beginning to bake a lot. I don't know if there's any of you out there right now that are baking more. Like, I baked maybe every 6 or 9 months, maybe. And now, like within the last 2 weeks, I baked like 4 times an apple crisp, bread, banana bread, 2 batches of cookies. Anyway, so yeah, so I tend to be cooking as well. That's about it. That's me.
Well, I like your background too,
Oh, thank
Victoria.
you very much. I just changed my office. I'm very excited. So this used to be what I looked at, and now I'm realizing I'm doing more virtual things because of the current situation. And yeah, so thank you. It's a painting,
Yeah.
actually. My husband did. It sounds funny to say a painting, but it is. It's quite nuanced when you look at it closely.
No, it's nice. For a second, I thought you were at the Mighty office. I was like, wow, they don't even let me in there right now. So I'm just excited to finally get a chance to talk to you, Victoria. We've been circling each other for the past several years now, and
Yeah,
we've both been fan of each other's works. I've
yeah,
read some of your
definitely.
stuff on the Mighty as well, seen your videos on YouTube,
Yeah.
and so you're someone whose work I admire and follow. So I'm glad that we're finally here, getting to talk
Yeah.
across
Yeah, across,
international
I know,
borders.
that's right. I'm right. I know. I am too. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah, because I've watched what you've done for a number of years, and read your writing, and just, yeah, so I'm really thrilled.
Yeah, and I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I'm glad that I get to connect you with Marie as well because she's an awesome hero. So
Yeah, sounds
we're
like
all
it.
friends here now.
I know. I know. Well, and it sounds like you do a lot of writing, Marie. And so I blog on Psychology Today and the Mighty. And so I'm looking forward to reading your material.
Ah,
Yes,
don't. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
I know, I know, I
actually,
know, I know.
she's got this book, so I highly recommend go
Oh,
check that
that's
out.
good.
Anxiety.com/book.
That's awesome.
Oh
I
my
will
gosh.
So,
definitely.
are you ready to talk about suicide, Victoria
I
Marie?
am totally ready to talk about
Always.
it. Yeah.
All right, let's get this ball in the row. Let's start with question number one. And
Okay.
here's how it goes. If you're on Twitter, make sure to respond to the tweet that's just going out right now. Let me just do the screen share just so you know what I'm talking about.
Great.
So right there, question number one: how can suicidal ideation be used as a coping mechanism? Just respond to that, and with the start off with A1 and then A2, so on and so forth. Make sure to use the hashtag SPSM on all your tweets. That way we can see it and appreciate it. And if you're on Facebook, if you're on Periscope, if you're on Mixer and you're on YouTube, still comment your response to these questions, and I can actually see it. Like Joelle Murray, who is wearing multiple hats tonight. She is running the Twitter chat moderation. She's also on Facebook. She's also watching the puppy who's hopefully behaving themselves. So hey, Salty, how you doing? If you're having a bad connection on Periscope, try checking us out on one of our other many platforms. YouTube's probably your best bet because you don't have to sign in with an account or anything like that. So without further ado, let's go on to Victoria and give your response to question number one.
Yeah, it was really interesting when we were talking about topics. And one thing that I haven't really heard a lot about when we talk about suicide, because we're typically talking about suicide prevention or talking about suicide survivors and things like that, is how it can play a role in allowing a person to feel somewhat more in control. And I can only speak for myself. I'm not a psychologist or a health professional, but for me, for a very long time, so even before I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I was experiencing really, really severe depression and very chronic suicidal ideation. And probably most of you know who are watching what that is, but for those of you who might not, the way for me, what it was just literally waking up and just wishing that I was not here anymore. It wasn't to the point where I necessarily had a plan. I might have thought about a few ideas, but it wasn't really, really concrete. But it was always this idea that I wanted to find a way out. And when I was working with a psychologist at the time, a counselor, and she knew that I was experiencing depression, but we hadn't really diagnosed it as clinical. And I talked about suicide. And we talked about how the fact that I felt like suicide was a chance for me to say to myself, if things get really bad, like where I feel like I can't take it at all anymore, I have a way out. Life can dish me whatever it is, but I'm the one that can say yay or nay at the end of the day. And somehow it allowed me to carry on a bit more, because it was almost like I can withstand this one more day, and then tomorrow maybe I won't, and I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, and see if suicide's the answer for that day. And so somehow it strangely gave me a sense of empowerment, because I felt like I was the one who had the last say. I felt like my emotions were totally out of control. My life, I felt, was out of control because of the way I was unable to function. So I was, barely getting out of bed, barely making contact with friends, barely able to work. But what I felt inside and outside that huge tornado, I felt like I had control over when the tornado ended. And that gave me a bit of hope in a weird way. And so I don't know if others felt like that. This is why I was really excited to be here, because I'm really curious if others have ever felt like it's a sort of it was almost like a power play in my books. And I never made a suicide attempt. I almost made a suicide attempt, and I called someone before I did. And I think some of that had to do with the fact that I was aware of being able to know whether or not I wanted to go through with it, and knew that I really had control in that part. What's your experience with it, Rudy?
Not as extreme as yours, but like it's weird because I feel like it feels like so long ago because I haven't really felt suicidal in a while. I used to feel suicidal all the time, especially
Yeah,
when I was living with family and poor. I just had nothing going for me.
yeah,
Yeah, it was bad, and it was one of those weird things. I used to like feel sorry for myself and want others to feel sorry for me. I just like in my mind, no one could have it worse than me, and if I just killed myself, then people would actually finally feel sorry for me and give me attention. Like
yeah.
for me, it was a lot about that. It's about the suicide, thinking about like that. If I go out with a bang, then people will finally have to care about me. But yeah, it's a little different from your story, but yeah, there was definitely many times. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this show.
Yeah,
But yeah, there
yeah.
was definitely many times where I've been suicidal and have come very close to taking my life, and I'm glad that I didn't. But yeah, coping mechanism is. is a interesting way of putting it. I liked how you put that. That's why I wanted to talk about that. So we had like our little conference call about a month ago, and I was like,
Yeah,
"Well, it's a good topic for an SPSM Chat show because no one's really
yeah,
put it in those type of words." So I'm glad that you are here, and I'm
yeah.
glad that Marie is going to give her take now, right now.
Can I add just one more thing before we go to
Absolutely.
Marie?
Sure, sure.
Um, is that it's sort of funny. It's sort of it wasn't something that I gravitated to. Like like how maybe we have wellness tools now. So I'm not advocating people to think that suicidal ideation is something that they should pick up
Oh,
and
absolutely.
try out. But it was also a way that I could. Uh, Channel my anger as well, because it was almost as if I felt like I had all this suicidal stuff coming up and all this pain and suffering, and I was angry because I felt like I was trying everything and I felt like nothing was working, and of course my self-hatred would get worse and deeper, and then it was almost like a big screw you to the world to say, okay, fine, I have a way out, and you're not going to make me do it anytime soon. It's only going to be when I want to. And so it gave me a sense of like, assertiveness in a strange way. And so it was nuanced, because my suicidal ideation and feeling suicidal it just felt chronic for at least like on and off, and severe for 2 or 3 years. So it was a different relationship that I had with it for sure. So,
Yeah. And I definitely advocate that we should normalize talking about suicide for everyone.
yeah,
Because I guarantee you, every single person has thought about suicide in some way at some point in their life. And yet, so many people are too afraid to talk about it, or if they do, they risk losing their job or getting thrown out of school or
yeah, yeah,
abandoned by friends or family. And that needs to stop because it can be really life changing, and it can be role changing. People just were able to talk about suicide
yeah.
in a more quote unquote normal way. I,
Well,
I,
and
I really appreciate that you asked for my perspective as well. Not enough guests do that. Keeps me on
well,
my
yeah,
toes.
yeah. Well, and I think it also takes the shame away, that because I haven't talked about suicide in a long time, and I still go through very infrequently, but where there's the fleeting stuff that goes past, and I go, oh yeah, today is just, and I think sometimes even if I don't know about you, but if I've been well for a long period of time and I start to feel suicidal, uh, there's sometimes even more shame because I feel like I should on myself and I shouldn't be feeling suicidal. I've got all these wellness tools and I know my illness really well and da 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 da. And so it's really good to be able to talk about it, just like you said, normalize it and recognize that it's sort of part of the tapestry of what many people, if not all people, experience, is particularly when there's chronic illness or mental illness in some sort. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And let's go to Marie. I want to make sure you get some time to give your response as well. And I see all the
I
comments on Facebook. Sorry, I was like, let's throw it to Marie now. Let's interrupt her. But I just want
no
to say,
no 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 no. I'm okay not saying anything for this one if we're
no,
if
no, no. I
honestly.
do want your take. I
No,
just
no,
want to
I
make
want
sure
to.
that
Okay.
people on
Okay.
Facebook, we see your comments. I see the tweets. So we'll get to that right after Marie's talking. So sit tight. So Marie, let's put the question back up just for everyone's sake.
So it's interesting as suicide as coping mechanism. For the longest time, I was so afraid of these thoughts, and I mean they're scary, right? You're supposed to your entire purpose in life is continuing life, and then perhaps passing that life on to somebody else. It is not the idea is not that you live and then want to somehow end it. And so it was a very, I never would have said it was a coping mechanism, but it definitely was an old reliable that I came back to a lot because I would think about how I would just because of how my depression worked and how cyclical it was in terms of like, and I feel like maybe some people can relate to this in general, where you fall back into those habits that depression gives you because that's like what you know. So again, that's kind of what our guest was talking about. The fact that you consider yourself such a piece of trash, you're so unworthy that this is your only way out. And for me, my suicidal ideation was revolved around the fact that I mean, there are a lot of things. I had PTSD, and that just the flashbacks and the pain of that was bad. Then depression, consistently telling myself that I was trash. Then I went off to college, and that's where I was finally away enough from my home environment to recognize that I was so unhappy and had these weird feelings at the time. And so falling now with 10 years of I'm not saying like I figured it out now. I just was actually tweeting about this, that like there's no point in which you go, okay, I have 10 years of experience, I will never be suicidal again. Like that's not how life works. That's not how our minds work. And so there's definitely this comfort of going back into trash talking to myself, which eventually leads me to suicidal ideation, because it almost feels like a straight line to me, where I tell myself I'm garbage. Everything I do isn't good enough, and I'm not good enough for my husband, even who tells me he loves me, and my dog, who probably doesn't care if I don't feel, like it devolves. And then, of course, if you're going to talk to yourself like that, eventually you're going to go, I don't know why I'm alive. If I'm so terrible, if I'm all of these things that I tell myself, who the hell wants me around? I don't understand. And so it seems like, and again, our guest was talking about that, it seems like suicide is the only way out, but obviously it's not. And I'm also very grateful that I'm still here. But there were a few close calls, and at the time it seemed like, well, this is it. Like, this is the solution. This is the only solution that I have. But looking back at it now, maybe with a little bit of 2020 perspective here, oh wait, that wasn't on purpose. That wasn't a pun on purpose. But with a little bit of perspective, it's clear that was a coping mechanism that I clung to. It was, oh, things are bad, I guess I'll just die. Oh, I don't feel good, I don't feel myself, I guess I'll just die. And just returning to that thought process. And actually, thankfully, like Rudy, I haven't been there in a while, but it's still fairly recent. Like, I would say within the past 2 years was the last time where I considered ending my life, even with everything that I have going on now and everything that I'm so proud of and the purpose that I've created for myself. And I'm far away from people who are toxic to me and all that. Like, definitely those thoughts come back, because there is a certain messed up comfort in them. Yeah, that's it.
You know what's really trash, Marie? Coronavirus. In all its various forms. Let's take it to questions or comments from Facebook. And let's see. Thank you, CLG. Hey, Amanda, how you doing? Amanda is actually presided over my wedding with Joelle. So I hope you're doing well with the kids and the family. Salty Meg can relate. And Sherry says, interesting concept, very similar to the thought process behind eating disorders. There is a sense of control over something. Yeah. And I'll have you know, Sherry, that we've done 2 episodes on eating disorders. So if you go check that out, I'm not sure what page you're on, but go to facebook.com/SPSM Chat. And there you'll see, go to the video section, and you'll see all of our shows since the beginning of time. And hey, Tabitha says, my friend called me hoping she gets COVID. She wants to die. That sounds like a discussion topic, not to make light of the situation, but that does sound like something that needs to be talked about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your friend is not the only person who has said things like that. Amanda says, totally a safety net, like you can get out if you continue to be bad. Tabitha says, great insight. I have not seen Ozark in any of its seasons, Tabitha, but I know if it's on TV, it's on in any way, then it has to do with bipolar. It's probably bad. So there's my great insights, Marie. I agree. So I know I'm like fighting you, Krista, with the comments. So thank you. Let's go to Twitter now. And Here we go. Tom, who I want to see your social work professor in this Twitter chat, okay? I will give him a raise if you can get him, your social work professor, Tom, onto the Twitter chat. I'll have him on the show. He will be a guest, or she, sorry, I don't mean to gender. But
They.
yes. So if you can get your professor on SPSM chat, then I will personally give you an A. So thank you. Actually, I should probably read his tweet too. So suicidal ideation in response to question number 2. Let's get to that because we haven't got to question number 2 yet. So thank you for the quote tweets, Joelle, running our Twitter chat. Gretchen says, if you experience childhood emotional neglect as you age and experience life, it can be difficult to process and you can experience suicidal ideation and it becomes a coping mechanism. They find it as a way out and don't often realize it as a coping mechanism. Oh, you're also that same social work class. So yes, get your professor to be on this show and you might as well just write your own checks. So let's get on to, hey, Stephanie again. Do you have any more questions? Hey, Salty Meg, I'm so glad that you're here every single week. Glad we haven't scared you off.
She's wonderful.
I always appreciate your comments. So without further ado, let's get on to question number 2. And that would be, how can being involuntary hospitalized activate suicidal intensity? Before I get to you, Marie, just know that I haven't forgot about you people on Mixer. If there's any comments on Mixer, we'll get to that once we get to Marie. So if you're just watching on Mixer, feel free to still ask questions or comments. We want to hear from you as well. So let's get to Victoria first.
Yeah, well, we were talking about this a little bit in an email exchange, is that for my own experience, which is where I'd like to speak from, obviously, is that I never found it that it increased my suicidal sort of intensity, and I don't know if that was because I was when I was committed, I guess it was twice, but I was in the psych ward 4 times. It was when I was in a euphoric mania. There was still obviously some trauma from being committed and having the whole wrestling match of being tied down to a gurney and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I had the experience of finding the psych ward actually a really safe place. And I think I was very fortunate that I had very good experience with the nurses and the healthcare professionals there, and with the emergency team from the ambulance and police. I think if it had been very different, I think my experience would have been much more negative and traumatic, and it would have affected how I felt about myself and how I felt about being there, period. Because I mean, any of you who have been committed know that your whole sense of identity gets dismantled, and not for the better. I mean, I felt when I was finally released that there was like a huge neon sign. I mean, I felt like a peeled grape, that everybody knew I had gone crazy, to use a phrase, and that I was just a loser. And so it was the experience of being out of control and my own internalized stigma around mental illness that was really toxic, more than the experience being involuntarily committed. So I can't speak for how it intensified things, but I can speak for how it affected me to be involuntarily committed. So that's about it.
Do you ever wonder if that might happen again in the future, that you'll be committed, Victoria?
Not involuntarily. I recently went through an episode of sort of psychosis with some insight. It wasn't a severe psychosis, but it was some trauma. I'm working through a lot of complex PTSD, and it was probably 2 years ago, maybe, 2 years ago. And I knew something was going on, and I was with my husband, and so I was able to recognize that I needed help. So I went to the emergency, but I wasn't to the point where I was lost in my delusions or hallucinations. I was still, so I think I have enough time, and I really think it's enough time under my belt that I know what those warning signs are. And I've had, I've really accepted the condition or whatever you want to call it, because I don't even like to call it illness, disorder, whatever you want to call it, but I'm aware enough about when things start to change, and I've had enough time where I feel really well, and if I let that go, I know where it can go. So I usually act on it, become really proactive.
What say you, Marie?
It's really, I don't know, this isn't exactly an answer to the question, but I just had this thought cross my mind, and I will answer the question, I promise, but I had this thought cross my mind that kind of so our guest touched upon the fact that you get to a point where you're like, hey, I know when I'm unwell, and you can kind of bring yourself to a hospital without it being a very dramatic thing, right? A big thing. And I was thinking about Marie Banford, who's also been a guest on your Mighty show, Rudy. And I was thinking about how she's described being suicidal now, where it's a very like casual thing where you can comprehend the state that you're in. And you're just like, all right, I feel like ending my life. And I'm very, very, very flat out comfortable with it, and I shouldn't be, and so I'm going to go to the hospital and have them help me get myself back on track. And that is so different than like how it's fascinating to me that you can have two things that are the same thing but done in so many different, it's done so differently, right? Like I when I was sent to the hospital, I was absolutely hysterical, and I didn't have to be tied down or anything, but again, like I was just absolutely hysterical and crying, and I couldn't get myself together. And I kind of calmed down talking to the paramedics that were driving me over there from my college. And then afterwards I burst into tears again and started freaking out and screaming and all that. And so it's very interesting how you can go from that and that kind of suicidal to, I really feel like dying right now. All right, I should go to the hospital about that. Like it's almost the difference between like, I don't even know what else to compare it to. I guess it's like chopping off a finger and then being like, I'm missing a finger. I should go and talk to a doctor about this. All right. Like it's very, it just, the juxtaposition of that blows my mind. So that little divergent on the side that nobody cares about, can we pull up the question? Thank you. Can we pull up yes. So how being involuntarily hospitalized activates suicidal intensity. So for me, what happened was I had talked about having suicidal ideation several times with my therapist that I had just started seeing because, my now husband, then boyfriend, brought me to the therapist at my college that we were both going to the same school. And so I came in there and I was like, this is different. This is not the same as it was when we talked before. I have an idea of how I'm going to do it. I want to do it. And if nobody watches me, I'm pretty sure I'm going to damn try. And she was like, all right, well, because you said that, I now have to have you sent to the hospital. So after that, the situation was terrible because they handled it in the hospital in the worst possible way that probably not worst. I don't know. I'm sure it gets worse for plenty of people, but they said that they like put in the paperwork that I was involuntarily committed, which are two very different things in how you're treated when you go to the hospital. They also said that I came in with a police officer, which I didn't, meaning that I was violent or needed restraints when I came in, which I wasn't. I very much volunteered myself, and then the college had to go through all of their steps that they have, right? They still have to call the ambulance, and the ambulance has to be followed by a police officer. But I walked in on my own, and I was very much like, I'm not feeling well, and I need somebody to watch me. And all the while, like, hysterically crying, but it was very much a, like, save me kind of thing. And the way I was treated gave me not the understanding that I was safe, but that like this would be the place where I start to feel worse, where I have to confront exactly how terrible my depression is, and I would want to die more because of, again, how I was treated and how the doctors were talking to me and the room that I was sitting in and how I wasn't allowed to touch anything or have a computer or read a book or anything like that. It was very much like I was sitting there and being like, oh, so this is what happens when they think you're really unwell. Well, I have to convince them that I'm not that bad. And so I calmed myself down. It was like this most bizarre 180. I calmed myself down. I was like, I'm fine. I need to go home now. And they're like, well, you're clearly not fine. You came in involuntarily. And then I got upset again because I was like, wait, backtrack. So that's when I found out all that other stuff that I mentioned. But in terms of, so like being committed brought me to a different kind of suicidal ideation. And so I guess this all does tie into the first story I told, where I was like, oh, I have to be a different kind of suicidal so that I'm not here because I'm not getting help here. I came here because I thought I was going to get help, but I'm just being put in a cage where I really feel like things are going to get worse if I'm here. So I don't know if that made any sense, but that's the whole thing. So there you go. You have it, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what is going to get worse, Marie?
Don't say COVID.
Okay, so let's take it to Twitter, and we got lots of great tweets going on. Thank you, Krista. Krista says, who is multitasking, also running our production back end, says, losing that sense of control. Additionally, hospitalization removes the support systems an individual built for themselves. It can feel very isolating / like there's no purpose in life because of how it feels to be in a psych ward / surrounded by so much quote unquote heaviness. Hashtag SPSM. Thank you for that. Thank you for quoting everyone, Joelle, on the SPSM Chat account. Tom says, in response to question number 2, says, suicidal ideation can arise out of the feeling of not being in control over one's own life. Exerting more control over that person may actually feed the cognitions leading to suicidal planning. Gretchen says, it depends on the facility and the staff that are with you during the process. If it is involuntary, the person is struggling with it, with what's happening, and they need compassion. If they don't receive that, their thoughts can escalate and more harm can be done. Initially, Lynn says, who's also in that social worker class. Well, you are all in full force tonight. I appreciate you. You're like,
it's a cult. It's not a social work class. It's a cult. Let's be honest here.
Yourself,
they're just hiding. They're hiding behind the fact that it's a social work class. We need to know what the cult is so that we can report it. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, guys. This is really cool. Thank you so much for following us.
I appreciate you.
Great.
Thank you. Stephanie says, this can cause an individual like they are losing control. This can cause them to activate suicidal intensity. Appreciate you. So now before we get into people's tweets on question number 3, well, let's have us get into question number 3. Before you even get that, I know we have some comments on Mixer. So can you catch us up, Marie?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had Catbot hides the... Yeah, Catbot hides the S word, unfortunately. So a few people have written comments. Well, one person has written comments using the word suicide and they get deleted. So I'm going to read those out loud. Suicide is a way, for question number 1, it was suicide is a way of a person taking control back when others obviously are destroying them. Humans hurting humans. That's what it boils down to. Then we have some teapots, which is great. Thank you, thank you, Man Cave. And then some amazing support. And then Saffron added, if you are suicidal in the same sex, I'm not sure what they meant, so I'm not going to read that one. But point is, thank you so much, Mixer, for being here. There's a ton of you here, and we appreciate you. And keep responding. We're definitely going to get to you and highlight your comments as well.
Yeah, and is there a way to whitelist suicide in the Catbot?
I think we have to figure it out later. I'm 90% positive.
Oh, yeah, we're not doing that right now. I don't have time for that. We're already like 10 minutes behind anyway. Okay, so thank you to everyone on Mixer. I appreciate you. Please, if you're watching because of Marie, which is probably all of you, please consider following us on Mixer. We're going to be doing some more content on there in the near future. Me, Rudy Caceres, will be on Marie's show soon, right, Marie?
Yeah, that's right. Not this Tuesday, but next Tuesday, we're going to be playing some Animal Crossing. We're going to teach Rudy how to Animal Cross. how to
Yes,
cross
yes.
those
I'm
animals.
going to have my wife coach me over the next week. So I'm glad I have that week buffer to really get into shape. So thank you for that opportunity, Marie. I appreciate your show. I've been on it
I
before, long
appreciate you.
before
Oh, this
SPSM
time we're
Chat.
gonna
So
dive in. This time it's gonna be real. This time, last time was
yes,
like playing. We were playing last time. Not
yeah.
this
We
time.
don't play any more games. Question number 3, and that would be: what are the potential positives? No, we talked about negatives in the last question, so this kind of bleeds over into question number 3. What are the potential positives of being involuntarily hospitalized while suicidal? Take it away, Victoria Maxwell at Victoria_BPP on Twitter.
Like I said, when I was hospitalized, I was always euphorically manic. So I was like running around, and one was actually after I had run down the street naked and looking for God and feeling like I had found him. And so I was fairly happy. So I can't totally speak to the experience of being involuntarily hospitalized while suicidal. I can say, though, what I found when you were talking about, Marie, your experience is that it really, a lot of it seemed to come down to how we were treated. And somehow I feel really, really fortunate because it could have gone really wrong, especially since, I had to be restrained. And there were definitely a couple of individuals who were not helpful in creating a safe space. But when I was in the ward, there was a sense of safety. And so I think being hospitalized it certainly, when I was feeling safe, it allowed me to really just let go of all the crap that I felt was influencing all the reasons why I felt like I was in the situation I was in. And I felt like I could surrender, and I could fall apart, more or less. And it was a place where I didn't feel threatened. I do relate to that experience of feeling like I had to get back to normal if I wanted to be let out. But it was when I met a couple of nurses in particular who I felt really, really listened to me. And it was one of the very first times where I started to trust someone in the medical system. And the hospitalizations really happened before I had accepted any of what I was going through. So it wasn't like I was, already, taking medication willingly or agreed that I had any problem. So closer to the end of the time when I met these two nurses in particular, and I was dealing with disordered eating as well, that I felt like they really, they listened to me in a way that no one else had. And that just happened to be the particular hospital that I was in. So I can only imagine what happens when you're in a hospital where, you don't run into people who show compassion, or you have doctors who are patronizing and, totally paternal. So, I think that's, in terms of safety, I think that's what could actually happen.
Yeah, and that's a big difference that can be a good or lead to a good or bad experience is the paternalism. Like the best people that helped me get through my hospitalizations weren't the doctors. They were the technicians. They were the nurses, the people who just want to make you feel like some sense of normalcy or hope that
being
that get it.
human.
Like, I know that this sucks. I know that this is bad and all this stuff, but you're gonna get out of it. You're a cool guy. That really helped me, having those, like I call them, like guardian angels, basically. Just like this, they're there at the right time when I need them, where I feel like no one else gives a damn. These doctors are treating me like a kid. I'm in restraints. I'm doing having to do all this stuff against my will. And thankfully, each time I've been hospitalized, there's been someone like that in the psych ward that is just, it's like kind of like the cool uncle that like lets you stay up past your bedtime and like sneaks in beers and stuff like that. That's not a true story, but Marie, talk about some of your experiences. Let's put up the question again just for everyone. I see some comments on Facebook, so I'll get to those afterwards as well.
So the positives, Oh man, I didn't have them.
Good.
I forgot that I also forgot to mention I specifically said that I was like, please do not tell my parents. I don't want to hear about this later. And they're like, well, your family needs to know so that they can take care of you and they can help you. And I was like, you don't understand what my family is going to do if they find out that I went to the hospital. And they contacted them anyway because either because I was there in their opinion involuntarily or because reasons they contacted them. And exactly what I thought happened, which was my dad called me and asked me why I was being so dramatic as to go to the hospital. So in terms of positive, I mean, I suppose that it's a great space to make sure you don't hurt yourself and potentially speak to doctors if you don't have an opportunity to speak to doctors otherwise. But where I was, again, because I was in college and they did have a psychiatrist. I just needed to wait a few more days to see them, and they did have several therapists. I just needed to wait for my next appointment, like all that stuff. It just wasn't. Yeah, that's it. That's my hot take. It wasn't the best, and it's really unfortunate because I always encourage people to get the help that they need. But if the help that you're getting is not what you need, then you need to go and look for the help that is better for you. And in my case, it was finding people who could watch me and help me outside of a hospital. And I'm very lucky that my now husband stuck around for that. But yeah, definitely, I don't really have a positive there. Sorry.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. You are far from the only one. So just to be clear, everyone out there in social media world is that if you only have negatives from involuntary or even voluntary psych stays, that's totally fine. If you only had positives, that's totally fine. I hear all the time from people on both sides. Usually it's people that have had some kind of mixed. So I've actually have talked to people where they'll have like 3 great stays in a row that really help stabilize them, really help provide structure, and then that fourth one was just just the worst experience ever, and then made them never want to go into a hospital again. So just know that if you've only had bad experiences in psych ward, I totally get it. That is, you are far from the only one. So, but if you've had positive experiences, I don't want to make it seem like your voice doesn't matter or anything like that. So, thank you to everyone who has been commenting. Let's get to some Facebook comments before we get on to the final question. Joelle Marie says, I don't know what to compare it to. It's like having chronic physical illness and dealing with being drastically ill versus not having a chronic and constant physical illness and being drastically ill. The first case, it's just that the shock is gone. Joelle is a fan of Animal Crossing too, so
Is she? I've never heard of that before. That's so strange.
yeah, you have no
I'm
idea.
kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, I
So
heard that she loves it. That's why I brought it up several times. I'm excited.
yes,
Yeah.
so Karen Webster on Facebook, who sounds like a cool person, says this is where peer support specialists and safe places can come in. Ain't never hating on a safe space. Well, the first step in dealing with a traumatic event is feeling safe. So thank you, Tabitha, for all your comments. But let's get to Joelle's comment. Previous one. I think this. Okay, now we read that one already. Okay, cool. I think we're okay. No, this is the one I was looking for. It's a long one, so I'll try to read it fast. And in response to question number one, there have been so many times that lasted 4 months where I literally only had the thoughts of dying and how relieving it would be to keep me plodding on. I only had to keep those thoughts safe and valid, though not as actions but as thoughts. It would have been so helpful to be able to openly say them and not be afraid of what would happen. Sometimes I just had to live through thinking about dying is not to die. We have to realize this is a fucking thing, and there goes your one fuck for the night, Joelle. So let's go on to Twitter. So Krista on question number 3 says, again, I have complicated feelings here. There have been times I've been hospitalized where I really just needed to get out of toxic space. I was in the hospitalization helped. It also reminded me I wasn't alone in feeling that way at times. I know I'm reading very fast, but I'm trying to get through these as fast as possible. If I missed anyone's tweets or comments, so sorry. Len says the intensive therapy and resources a respected facility can provide such a positive impact in the person's life to create those coping mechanisms and ability to get back into society. My mouth is going dry. Sorry, let's just go on to question number 4, and so I can get some water, and then I'll read the rest of your tweets. Question number 4, and that would be, what are some alternatives to involuntary hospitalization for people who are suicidal? Take it away, Victoria.
Well, I had one that I guess might parallel is when I was in a psychosis and I went to the emergency ward, and they of course said, well, if you're telling me that you're psychotic, you're not bad enough to be in the hospital, which is like, yeah, but I don't know if I'm going to actually, get worse. But they had this place called Magnolia House, which was sort of like a in between of an outpatient place and a hospital, and it was they're like non-clinical. It was literally a house, and you had a bedroom, and it was a great place. And I'm in Canada, so this was covered by the medical system, so it didn't bankrupt me or anything like that. And that was a really great place to be able to land and feel like I was in a home, as opposed to like a psych ward where I was really sort of face to face with what I was dealing with. And I think also having peer specialists in the emergency ward, or have sort of like I don't necessarily say a separate building, like because I don't want to sort of that sort of segregation idea, but somewhere where peer specialists come in first to work with an individual, because I know having someone there tell me that they've been through it and they know what it's like would have made a huge difference for me, and would have given me some sense that I was actually going to be able to get through it, because I think I was really, really frightened that it was just going to be a revolving door for me. That's
Marie.
it.
What say you, Marie?
In my experience, again, I kind of answered this with the last question, so I will keep it short. But I do believe that I would have been better in like some kind of home surveillance, and I think that would have been a better alternative for me. I think a peer specialist would have also done wonders, but I also think having a clear idea of what was to occur should I go to the hospital would have also done me a lot better. Like if they had explained the purpose of you going to the hospital, what was explained to me was the purpose was for me to go and get medication before I could talk to a psychiatrist on campus. And that's clearly not what happened. So I wish that was better explained to me. And that's it.
All right, now let's go back to Twitter, and we'll also get through some comments, and then we'll get through final thoughts. So let's take it to Twitter now. So Lynn says, in response to question number 4, says, working with early childhood, it's important for us to, instead of act fast to hospitalize, but to get the parents involved and find more information to get the full story and support. Krista Marie says, having alternative safe spaces to go, asking friends to check in regularly, having additional professional support. It really depends how quote unquote active the ideation is and what other supports the individual has around them. Yes, ask all the questions, Krista. We want to know everything about hashtag SW5602. Stephanie says the therapy, in response to question number 3, the therapy the person will receive and new coping methods, this could ultimately save someone's life. And then Gretchen says, I think facilities that have partial hospitalization programs would be beneficial, or having someone get engaged in weekly individual and group therapy, also ensuring that the person has a support system and have safety plan in place. Let's take it to some comments from Joelle on Facebook. Let me just put this on there. For the most part, I've had better experiences with the general staff than the quote unquote specialists. They don't have anything to prove, like they don't think that they know better than you who you are. They don't have as much of an investment to convince you of much of anything. There have been not great ones, but they have been minority. And Tabitha says, yes, safe spaces need to come in. More varieties of safe spaces need to be available for mental health respite. Yes, yes, yes. So I think we're all caught up now. Oh, wait, the Laz, sounds like a cool name, says, I will drop a provider if they don't agree. Inpatient would be harmful for me. Danielle Glick is on assignment right now, literally, so that's why she can't join us right now. You like that, Marie?
Yeah, give her kisses. I'm sending kisses. That's all.
Yes, no, we hope you're okay. We hope like you complete all your assignments on time and do well in your studies. That way you can become Dr. Glick on time. It is time for final thoughts. And let's go with Marie. Final thoughts, Marie.
My final thoughts are, I hope that the mental health care system only improves. Again, having peer support specialists and having great staff is a wonderful thing and a wonderful step in that direction. So I'm glad to hear that people's experiences have been good, even if it's just thanks to those smaller pieces of the machine. I hope it continues to improve, and I do believe that a lot of people can get a lot of great things. Super cheesy, I know, but I believe that a lot of good things can come out of it. And just because I had a bad experience, I don't want anybody to stay away from going to a hospital because they heard my story. It is a story of like, this can happen, but you also heard 2 stories of things that can happen that are positive. So I hope you weigh your pros and cons and do what's right for you, which most people, you're the best person to know that ultimately.
Yeah, so we have any more comments on Mixer?
Nope, we're good.
Yes, and thank you everyone for watching on Mixer. I really appreciate you all.
Thank you.
I always like how much better our video quality is on Mixer.
It's beautiful.
I know, for some reason it looks like trash on YouTube. That's a whole different story. Is there any, speaking of Mixer though, like is there any good content that we have to look forward to on mixer.com/anxiety? In the near future?
Absolutely. Yes. So Tuesday we have Dr. Mick on, who's going to be just answering questions. So if you have questions that you want a therapist to answer, come on in. And he's awesome. And we've had it on several times, so it's going to be great. And then Wednesday, actually, the thing that I should be announcing right now is we are working on an uplift-a-thon. So what the hell is that? It's not pretending that the world is not imploding around us. It's just bringing a little bit of bright light over to it. So we are collecting positive stories, funny stories, poems, affirmations, single words, whatever you have, anxiety.marie@gmail.com. I don't regret saying that out loud at all. But so go and if you have anything like that, send it over. The Uplift-a-thon will be benefiting TakeThis.org, which is a fantastic charity. You guys have met Dr. B here on the stream before. So the TakeThis.org can continue providing amazing resources for gamers dealing with mental health issues through COVID.
Yeah, you should be like the official ambassador of TakeThis.org now.
Did you know that I am? Like, is that a joke? Because I don't.
I know they have a brand ambassador program, but you should be the face. You should be the logo. When I click on TakeThis.org, this should be the logo. This should be the icon on the website header.
Oh my God, Rudy, you're my biggest fan. I appreciate you so much. I can't wait to grill the shit out of you next Tuesday.
I am totally unprepared, but you know who is prepared? Victoria Maxwell for final thoughts.
Oh wow. I think two things is that I really hope that when people are in the hospital, that they recognize that sometimes the most kind in exchanges happen in the most surprising places. So it can be like a lot of the people in the comments were saying that it's often people that aren't even in the health professional. It can be the janitor, it can be the people that work in the cafeteria stuff. And I really found that. And I hope that that's what people are experiencing when they do go, is that if they're having a really hard time there, that's part of it. And I think also shows like this, I just want people to start getting more comfortable talking about suicide so that friends can talk about it, ask questions. I mean, so parents, and just it becomes something that it's like understanding what, if someone's having a bad day, that we know if someone's having a really bad day, we have the courage to say, are you thinking about suicide? And to know that it's okay to say yes. that would be what I hope to see, is that it's okay to say yes, and that we work in partnership with people when they are feeling suicidal, instead of sort of overpowering them, to really help people feel like they've got some say in what happens. I think that's probably it, because I think that would be a gentler way, and I think people would feel more willing to actually get the help that they need.
And how can we connect with you, Victoria?
You can connect with me on my website, victoriamaxwell.com, just like it sounds and says. And I'm on Twitter, Victoria. What am I? What am I on Twitter? At Victoria_BPP, I think. And you can connect with me there. And I'd love to hear what people think. If you have questions, I do mental health consulting, so I'm always happy to be able to do, find resources for people that they might have a hard time finding. So, yeah.
Yes. Again, I'm so glad that you're finally on. I'm so glad we were finally able to collaborate and work
Yeah, me
together.
too.
Yes, and
Marie,
so
you're
definitely,
great.
I'm certain it won't be the last time. And
No.
so thank you for coming on, for tackling some very difficult subject
Yeah.
matter, for dealing with my BS. So I'm thankful for you, and I'm looking forward to next Sunday, because we're going to
Yeah.
have on Ashley J. She's going to be talking about BPD and also her subreddit that she created to talk about Black mental health. So
Wow.
that'll be cool. We also have other cool guests lined up for the month of April. So be on the lookout for that. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/SPSM Chat. We are at SPSM Chat. I'm at Rudy Caceres, of course. Facebook.com/SPSM Chat, YouTube.com/SPSM Chat, where probably the easiest way to go watch all the past episodes. Once you get done with the Tiger King, then you go on to SPSM Chat, and then that's where the real binge watching takes place.
Right.
Mixer.com/SPSM Chat. And then when I get around to finally updating the website, you can go check out SPSMchat.com. That's going to do it for this week. We'll be back again, of course, next Sunday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Because if it's Sunday, it's SPSM Chat and Meet the Press.
Absolutely.
Until then, hold your piggies close.